The Do-Nothing Congress. Yeah, I Wish, by Scott Mason. The other day, I had a conversation with a friend of mine. We talked about sports, entertainment, and life in general before we ended up where we inevitably always do. Politics. Our federal government makes me sick, he said. Uh-huh, I responded. I mean, one side gets in power and then the other side just obstructs. And that's a bad thing, I asked? Well, yeah, because then they don't get anything done. It's like the system is set up to gridlock. Pretty much, I said. That doesn't bother you, he asked? I mean, one senator gets in and that's it. I don't get it. The big states like New York and California should have more say than Montana in the Senate. There's more people in the bigger coastal states. I chuckled a little bit and reminded my friend that that's exactly why the system was meant to gridlock. The states and the individual were supposed to be the ones with nearly all of the power. The federal government was supposed to adhere to the limited role granted to it by the Constitution, and to encourage state sovereignty and prevent tyranny of the majority, each state would get equal representation in the Senate. In other words, it was supposed to be difficult to pass major federal legislation. Despite this, unfortunately, both sides of the political spectrum have completely bastardized parts of the Constitution, like the General Welfare Clause and the Interstate Commerce Clause over the years, to try to get through legislation the likes of which was never intended to be undertaken at the federal level. So when the system actually works the way it was originally intended in some small way, namely gridlock making it difficult for either side to get anything passed, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. To quote the West Wing's fictional president Josiah Bartlett, partisan politics is what the founders had in mind. It guarantees that the minority opinion is heard. End quote. Anytime either side gets too much power and can run roughshod over the other, we're headed for certain disaster. For proof of this, see the record deficits and endless wars racked up by the Bush administration and a Republican House and Senate. And for more proof, see the further escalation of those deficits and wars under President Obama and a Democratic House and Senate. That's why we're better off when they're fighting each other. Notice how I said fighting each other, not working together. Because when politicians work together, nothing good ever comes of that. As comedian Louis Black explains, quote, "The only thing dumber than a Democrat or a Republican is when those pricks work together. You see, in our two-party system, the Democrats are the party of no ideas and the Republicans are the party of bad ideas. It usually goes something like this. A Republican will stand up in Congress and say, 'I've got a really bad idea,' and the Democrat will immediately jump to his feet and declare, 'And I can make it shittier,' end quote. Yep, that's about right. Here's a list of just a few of the wonderful bipartisan measures that have come out of Washington in recent years. The authorization for use of force in Iraq, the free speech destroying McCain-Feingold Act, the USA Patriot Act, which was the biggest civil liberties intrusion in decades, No Child Left Behind, which poured even more money into federal education with no improvement in results, Sarbanes-Oxley, the post-Enron accounting rule changes that Lloyd's of London chairman Lord Peter Levine referred to as America's greatest gift to Europe for its end result of driving numerous American businesses out of the country, and, last but not least, the $700 billion bank welfare program known as TARP. Teamwork indeed. That's why I had to laugh when, after Scott Brown got elected as senator in Massachusetts, many pundits declared that both sides would have to work together and the Republicans would now have a seat at the table. To the Republicans, I say, great, go grab your seat at the table. Then promptly tell the Democrats their mama is ugly and ask them if they want to step outside. The reality of the situation is, as much as I'd love a federal government filled with representatives who actually cared about freedom and the Constitution, we don't have that. Hell, we're not even close. All we've got are a bunch of people whose only concern is maintaining and even strengthening their own power. As a result, all we have left is the hope that they adhere to the medical principle of primum non nocere, translated as first do no harm, by working against each other to essentially accomplish nothing. Or as Fox Business Network's Cody Willard put it, quote, "I'm tired of the Republicans and I'm tired of the Democrats, and I don't want bipartisanship. I don't want Republicans and Democrats working together. They've done enough already. Just leave us alone," end quote. Amen, Cody. Couldn't have said it better myself.